At 11 p.m., a surge of sudden inspiration can make a total life overhaul feel easy. You open a notebook and map out a flawless tomorrow, a 5 a.m. wake-up call, a heavy workout, 3 hours of deep study, and 0 minutes wasted on a screen. In the dim light of the room, that version of you feels entirely real. But when the alarm rings the next morning, that midnight version of you is gone. Your hand reaches for the phone to kill the noise, and a quick check of notifications turns into a 20-minute scroll. The workout is abandoned, the study session is delayed, and the schedule begins to dissolve. By evening, the weight of the wasted day turns into a sharp sense of self-directed anger. To escape that shame, you double down on the original mistake, writing an even stricter, more punishing plan for the following day, unintentionally rebooting the cycle. We often mislabel this as a lack of character or simple laziness. However, the breakdown happens because your plan relies on motivation, an unstable emotional peak that disappears the moment a task becomes repetitive or uncomfortable. Effective discipline functions as a quiet system of architecture around your life. It is the tactical practice of building a routine that remains standing long after your initial excitement has vanished. This system is necessary because your brain has a biological bias toward immediate comfort. Activities like studying or building a business offer rewards that are months away, while distractions like scrolling or snacks offer a hit of relief right now. This process is known as temporal discounting. In the brain's internal courtroom, a tired judge constantly weighs abstract future success against concrete present relief. Because the future is less tangible than a plate of food or a glowing screen, the judge almost always sides with the immediate reward. Procrastination serves as a short-term mood repair strategy. When you face a difficult task, your brain experiences a dip in mood. It instinctively reaches for a distraction to restore comfort in the current moment, regardless of the long-term cost. Overcoming this biological preference for comfort requires more than willpower. It requires a structural countercycle. The Lotus Method provides this framework, mimicking how a seed uses the heavy physical pressure of underwater mud to ground itself and build the strength required to grow upward. The Lotus Method treats the mud of your impulses and boredom as a necessary part of the growth process. You use a structured life cycle to build a path through that resistance, instead of waiting for the resistance to go away. The process starts at the root. You replace vague goals like, "I want to be productive," with a firm identity sentence. By stating, "I am becoming the kind of person who keeps promises to my future self," you give the inevitable discomfort of the work a specific logical meaning. For a new identity to take hold, it must be anchored into your physical space. This is the STEM stage, where you transition from mental intent to environmental design. A lotus stem builds a physical route through the water. You mirror this by removing distractions and placing the tools for your work in plain sight. If your phone sits next to your textbook, you are relying on willpower. If the phone is in another room and the book is already open, you are relying on architecture. You further protect this environment with if-then plans. As this diagram shows, you pre-attach a specific action to a specific cue. By deciding that if it's 7 p.m., then I open my book, you remove the need for your brain to negotiate the decision in the moment. To lower the barrier to entry, you apply the 2-minute start. A large task creates an immediate sense of threat in the brain. Committing to just 2 minutes of opening a file or writing one sentence bypasses that fear, using a small amount of initial momentum to make the rest of the climb visible. By shaping the room and choosing a tiny starting point, you move past the struggle of trying to be more disciplined and simply follow the path your environment has already paved. Once you begin, you enter the bloom stage. This is a focused work session protected by a timer and a complete block on notifications. This is where the discipline becomes a physical act. Resistance will arrive eventually. You'll hit a difficult paragraph or a boring stretch of work, and your brain will suddenly demand a hit of novelty or a quick escape to a browser tab. When that urge hits, you use a technique called notice, name, and return. You pause, observe the physical feeling of restlessness, and label it internally as the urge to check my phone. Instead of obeying the impulse, You simply return your attention to the task. Think of this craving as a wave of mud. It arrives loudly and feels like an emergency, but if you simply observe it, the wave will reach its peak and naturally dissipate. You can feel the urge without letting it drive your hands. A successful focus session is defined by the speed of your recovery. True discipline is the practice of noticing the drift of your mind and bringing it back to the work, over and over again. The final stage, thrive, handles the moment the system inevitably breaks. Life happens, routines fail, and eventually you will miss a day of work. We usually interpret a missed day as proof that our new identity has failed. But as this image shows, a lotus that closes during a storm is not a dead plant. The glowing root network beneath the water remains intact and ready for the next cycle. A missed day is simply data. It reveals a flaw in your environment or a cue that wasn't clear enough. The rule for long-term consistency is to return the following day without any self-punishment or unrealistic catch-up plans that invite further failure. You can build this system through a 7-day challenge. On day 1, write your identity sentence. On day 2, remove one physical distraction from your workspace. On day 4, complete one focused bloom session. Use the rest of the week to practice the act of returning when you lose focus. A disciplined future doesn't require a single perfect day or an overnight transformation. It requires the quiet, honest practice of returning to the work, regardless of how much mud is in the way.